I recently went to an author event where I got to meet Susan G. Haino, and she did a reading for the first chapter of this book, Grave Secrets, which is part of the Love Inspired Cold Cases. I believe they're put out by Harlequin, 90% sure about that. And hearing her first chapter, I was sucked in. I had to know what happened. I've read the book and I would like to give you my thoughts on it. However, please know this is all the thoughts, all the spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, come back when you do and we can talk about it.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
All right. So this book starts out with Carly going to the church that she grew up in. And it is, I believe it's like 5 years after her father has passed away. He was previously the pastor of this church. And the church has kind of been in disrepair since his death. The congregation has moved and combined with another local church. And so this old church is now fairly dilapidated. But Carly wants to get this church. She wants to buy this church and put it to use as she's a lawyer and she wants to open up like law services, social work, things like that in this church building. So she's not looking to use it as a church, but to use it for other very community-oriented things. However, because of its condition, getting a bank loan is tricky, and the bank wants to know, well, how much is it going to cost to fix it? How bad is this? What is the situation on this building? So she has to have the people, I don't know what they're called, the construction people, like come and look at it. And they're looking at the foundation, and while they're doing stuff to the foundation, they find a body. So the police are called in, and TJ is our police officer. Now, he is the brother of the pastor of the church that the congregations have combined into. So they know some of the same people. Even though Carly has been gone from this town for a long time, it's a fairly small town. And, like, obviously they know some of the same people. So pretty quickly it is suspected and does turn out that the body is from a guy named Ricky, who was her ex-boyfriend and who people remember her father, the pastor, having some issues with. You know, he got in trouble some, things like that. So right away, TJ is kind of suspecting her dad of the murder. I think maybe at one point it crossed his mind it could be her, but he eliminates her as a suspect pretty quickly. Although, you know, I think she probably should have maybe been a suspect a little longer, but she didn't do it. But just, you know, TJ was like, oh, she's a pretty girl. She's not a suspect. I'm sure there was more to it in the beginning, but the primary focus becomes her father. And TJ is kind of looking at her father, and she keeps going, my father could never have done something like this. You're barking up the wrong tree. And TJ's like, well, I just want to eliminate him as a suspect. He's the best suspect. It's his church, you know. And, you know, she's like, well, clearly you just want to pin this on him because he's dead and can't fight it. So there's some really interesting tension between them right away. I did not like Carly from the get-go. I found that I didn't fully understand her as a character, and she just didn't work for me. She has a really complicated relationship with her mom, but it's a lot of like, she feels like her mom has moved on since her dad, and she didn't think her mom should have moved on, maybe. And she is like really devoted to her dad. Really, really, like, come hell or high water, she's gonna make sure that she clears her dad's name. And TJ lets her insert herself into this investigation. So I will say that was one of the issues I did have with this book too, is you really have to suspend your disbelief, because I feel like a police officer is not going to let you be as involved as Carly is. Now, I know in these romances and stuff, sometimes they do things that are just for story value and not for reality. But I mean, from the get-go, every time TJ turns up, Carly is talking to witnesses or, people associated with the case. And then, he's like, let's go through the evidence together so that we can prove that your dad didn't really do anything wrong. And like, that in a lot of ways that didn't work for me, because I feel like he should have known that she was so gung-ho on this situation that she was gonna prove her dad didn't do it. And we do have a scene actually later in the book where she is like, oh, I think I shouldn't reveal this evidence because I'm worried that it'll incriminate my dad, even though he didn't do it. I don't want to reveal this to TJ. Now, I will tell you too, relative to the story, I buddy read this with my friend who is a Twitch streamer, so go follow her stream. And she had kind of a bit different of an experience with this book than I did in some ways. And I think there were a lot of times we talked about the characters, and she was able to say, I think Carly is acting this way or having these things because of. For instance, I didn't necessarily understand Carly's excessive undying emotional, like, my dad is innocent. He's never done anything wrong in his life, and I'm going to prove it no matter what. Like, it just comes off as really extreme to me. But, she kind of walked me through, dynamics of you have just the three of them, and it's a complicated life being a preacher kid. And so, her devotion to her dad, who she obviously spent a lot of time with, was a good, involved father, wasn't as surprising to my friend, One Inch Princess, as it was to me, who was like, this girl's a little crazy. Like, I love my father. I do. I'm a daddy's girl all the way. But if you had some real evidence that he committed murder, like, I'd at least consider it. And I certainly wouldn't hide evidence from the police to be like, no, my dad didn't do it, but clearly you cannot have this evidence because he, it looks bad. But at the end, Carly is good about it. She takes the evidence to him and shows it to him. So we also have like a complicated history with TJ and her law firm that she came from. He had dated a girl whose husband killed her. Like, they didn't, like, there was no cheating or anything. Like, he dated her a long time ago. They broke up. She married somebody else, and her husband was abusing her and ultimately killed her. And then Carly's old law firm defended him and got him off for this murder charge. So TJ and Carly have a really complex relationship from the get-go. He doesn't really like lawyers. They're on different sides of this case. She wants to prove her father didn't do anything. TJ is seen as the enemy because, she thinks that he's just gonna use her dad as a scapegoat because her dad's dead and can't say anything. And I really had a hard time with that dynamic. I didn't love it. So they're very adversarial, but they're also like noticing how cute the other person is. But I didn't feel like the romance for me. There were little moments of sharing things and soul things and peeling back the onion, but like so much of it wasn't that. And I really wanted more of that in a book that is supposed to be heavily romance. I didn't think there was enough romance in this mystery for my personal taste. So we have then, they continue the investigation together and find out that at the end of the day, Ricky was killed semi-accidentally by his friends, who at the time were also teenagers and were scared and, were like, did things to hide the body so that they didn't get in trouble. And they are brought to justice for it, and it's fine. And I kind of guessed pretty early on. There's a scene where we find that has been a postcard sent, supposedly from Ricky. And it is sent to Ricky's sister, who is married to one of the suspects, basically, one of Ricky's old friends. And it was sent to her when she was thinking about not marrying this guy because she really wanted her brother to be there. And somehow magically, the postcard from her brother, who has been missing for years, shows up and is like, "Hey, sis, doing great. Move on with your life. Wish I could be at your wedding, but I'm not." Right away I started to suspect that he was involved in the murder slash cover up. So you do have law enforcement people involved, but also like there is a higher level sheriff person who's just kind of a jerk for no reason. I don't think he knew that his deputy was involved, but it kind of rubbed me wrong when it felt like he was trying to rush TJ to close the case. It's a cold case. It's not, you're not going to find anything. Just say the Reverend did it. And I didn't like that either. I'm like, why are we doing that? Why, unless this guy has some personal involvement, why does he just want to? And so him and TJ are kind of at odds, and then he's being like, you can't share the case with Carly. Carly's going to mess stuff up. So there was just a lot of dynamics in this book that didn't work for me. I think the mystery itself was cool. I was very engaged in it because I didn't like Carly. And Carly does at one point have like, they're in the middle of a church service and she has kind of this inspiration from what's being preached on the pulpit that she needs to kind of let things go and try to embrace different things and be a little bit of a better person than she is. She wasn't a bad person to begin with. I just don't like her. So I think that maybe there is meant to be a change because she does have some jealousy early on, which I hated. Like as soon as she finds out that, you know, TJ ever looked at a girl ever, she finds out kind of about the ex-girlfriend, but she doesn't know their relationship or anything, and she gets super jealous. And I really didn't like that. Like, you don't even know who this girl is. That girl could be her sister or his sister. You don't know her. Why are you all jealous? And all like, oh, I bet since he's not calling me, he's going and seeing her. Like, I hated that. I hated the jealousy and stuff from this girl. So anyway, but Carly does have like a little bit of a change of heart and some change in her character. But again, for me, I just throughout the book never really attached to Carly. She just wasn't my favorite. So I do think that for me, especially as a romance, that was not the best experience for me. I didn't like Carly. Did like TJ, he's pretty cool. The mystery itself was pretty good. Like I said, but I didn't like Carly. I'm sad because I really wanted to love Carly and I really wanted to like love this book. I liked it. It was fine. I would read more from this author 100%, but this particular book just wasn't quite for me. All right, guys, if you've read this book, tell me your thoughts. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you have a better experience with Carly than I did? Anything you have thoughts-wise, put it down below because we've already discussed all the spoilers. All right, talk to you later, guys. This has been Jane. Bye.